Hello, top producers and top producers to be. This is Bill Hart with this month's edition of Reps. Get ready to have a good time, because I certainly did. I'm going to take you today to Arizona, where you are going to meet Curtis Johnson, and this guy rocks. I want you to put some Visine in your eyes, grab a double cappuccino, put on your seatbelt, and prepare to be dazzled, because in a market where everybody else is singing the blues, all of this guy's numbers are up, and I'm telling you, there is information here that you can benefit from. So get ready to enjoy the very first time that you listen to my interview with Curtis Johnson. Well, Curtis, thanks for being with us today. How is everything in Maricopa County, Arizona?
It is fantastic. It's a little bit warm, but that's what to be expected out here in the desert.
That's
Good to
right.
be with you, Bill.
That's right, man. Good. Well, I'm glad to have you here. I know you've had an opportunity to hear these interviews for a while, so it's terrific to have an opportunity to have you join us.
I'm glad to get the call from you. I was thinking about stalking you for a while to see if I could get an interview, but I'm glad you made the call to me.
Sooner or later, guys like you definitely come to my attention, and I'm glad we've got the opportunity. And the main reason is that, you know, we're in a market right now, and you know this, Curtis, that around the country, with just very few little pockets of exception, you know, everybody's feeling a tighter market. It's definitely more challenging. And so when I hear from you that your business is up, that the percentage of commission that you're bringing in is up, I'm thinking, man, this is a story I need to get out like right now. So I'm thrilled to have you here. So with that said, let me ask you a question before we even go into any background or numbers or anything. If there was one thing that you could point to more than anything else that has really helped you to make you the success that you are, what one thing would you point at?
Well, I guess I would debate the success with you. I think that's still to be determined. I think I've got some great aspirations and great goals that we're looking at. But as far as if there's one thing, the one thing is that there isn't one thing.
Okay.
You know, I think that there's any number of things, but everybody always wants to shrink it down to hey, what's the one thing or the two or three things I can learn at this conference that's going to change your business?
Yeah.
And I think it's a marginal business. I think that every day you've got a choice on if you're going to keep doing the same things, or are you going to outperform your competition by 1%, and 1% over a period of time is a dramatic difference.
Yeah.
So that's really what I focus my business on, is that it's not just one thing, but every day I outwork them by 1% and see what happens.
I love that. Good for you. Well, I think that's actually just like a perfect message in this market, because frankly, you know, you've heard the expression fat, dumb, and happy.
Sure.
You know, I'm afraid that that's kind of what happens to us in this industry, and it's cyclical, right? We have our peaks and valleys, and you know, when it's good, man, it's good. And you know, as long as, I think it was Mike Ferry years ago said, as long as you don't throw up on their shoes, you should be able to go out and get a listing in a good market, right?
Sure.
And so when we're in that kind of a market, there's almost like one mentality and one skill set that really can work, and you can make a decent living. But man, when it slows down and the rest of the crabs in the bucket are starting to complain, and sellers are stupid, and you know, the market's bad and rates are up, and you buy into that, right? And you just get dragged down into it. So
I just choose not to buy into that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's a choice. I think success is a choice. I think although you can't always change all the factors in the quote market out
Right.
there, I think you do have a choice every day what you let play in your head, and I just choose not to live in that world.
yeah, I just love that.
I think Zig Ziglar talks about one of the great things that I take from him is he says that you don't drown by falling in the water, you only drown if you stay there.
Absolutely. Good for you. What a great way to frame it. Well, with that said, let's establish some groundwork here. So your company is Curtis Johnson Realty.
Right. Took a while to come up with that, but we sent it through some different companies.
Yeah.
And, did some data testing, and it really came back that was a strong message.
Let's go. So you changed your name because it flowed so well. Yeah, I can get that. And you were in beautiful downtown Mesa, Arizona, or Glendale, Arizona, or
right.
Is it?
Just opened up another office on the other side of town here, about 50 or 60 miles away, just because we had so much demand for our services, and about 95% of all of our appointments, both listings and working with buyers, are in our office. So we wanted to open up another location that was a little bit closer to that side of town, so people didn't have to drive, 50 or 60 miles each way, which we were actually able to have happen in a lot of cases, but we want to make it a little bit easier on our clients.
I told you before we got on microphone that the thing that I love about what I'm seeing about what you're doing is it is so unbelievably contrarian. We're in a market where if anything right now, there's contraction. Offices are closing. When people are desperate, they're certainly not trying to bring people into their office. They're saying, hey, no problem. You tell me where you want to meet. Starbucks, I'll be there. Your house, no problem. Fly to Mexico where you're on vacation? Okay, I'll go there.
Absolutely not. I mean, my motto is look at what everybody else is doing and do absolutely the opposite.
Yeah,
thing.
baby.
I mean, if you do what everybody else does, look at what the industry. I love real estate, but it's more or less it's a failed industry.
Yep.
I mean, it's a system where the majority of people are in and out in just a matter of months. Lending pretty much the same thing. So if you do the same thing everybody else does, you're going to end up with the same results. And the big problem I see is that most people are so concerned about what other people's perceptions are of them.
Right.
That's where it's not that everybody wants to do the same thing, but
Sure.
people are afraid to be bold and to make a decision on their own because of what about the other people in the office? What are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? The other people in the office are failing just like you're about to do if you do the same thing.
Yeah, so let's not be a part of that, right?
Absolutely not.
Good call, man. All right, so let's lay some numbers down here. So your average sales price is in the 300 range, somewhere in there?
Right, just about the low 300s.
Okay. And you've been in this business for how long now, Curtis?
Just right about 8 years.
Okay, 8 years. And so, I just find in real estate after 20 some odd years in this business, it is always fascinating to me, the matriculation into this business. So I'm assuming a guy like you achieving the success that you are right now, even though you're not hitting your goals yet, totally, you probably were uniquely well-trained and suited for real estate. What did you do just before real estate?
Yeah, well, I didn't go through, although the local school here, ASU, has a great real estate degree, I didn't go through that. I actually did a few other things. One of the things a lot of people kind of get a kick out of is that I sold funeral plans.
There
for a
you
while.
go.
I was doing that, and then I also worked for a real estate attorney, chasing down essentially deadbeat moms and dads that owed child support and trying to wrangle their properties from them to be able to get the money and be a modern-day Robin Hood. Actually didn't turn out nearly as good as what I had kind of anticipated, but it was an interesting experience. But, yeah, I actually sold funeral plans and a glorified bill collector.
So you went from, dead bodies and dead beats.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Great job.
To living the dream.
Yeah, that's why you're on that end of the phone. Good job.
Thanks, man. Turning the phrase. That's all I got to do. So let's go back now a few years. Walk me through, if you would, just maybe the past 2 or 3 years in terms of volume and units, Curtis.
Okay. Like I said, it's coming up on about 8 years in the business, so don't have
Sure.
the 25, 30-year career what a lot of people do, but for
Right.
about the last 5 to 6 years, done over 100 sides.
Wow.
So far this year, already past there about halfway through the year. Our volume's higher than it's ever been, and our commission percentages are higher than they've ever been, usually about a point and a half higher than what anybody else is even close to getting.
That is so great.
The last few years in the 140 to 160 range. This year we'll go well over 200, probably closer to 3. I've got some good aspirations, and we've got some really good leads coming in. I think we're going to be pushing closer to 4.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, man, I am so thrilled about that, and I want to try and transfer as much value, skill and execution in this interview as I can. So I get the philosophy, and I certainly want to hear more about it. But let's give listeners some real meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Now, you wrote for me that your average commission per transaction has gone from $4,900 to $11,000 per side.
Correct.
I mean, that's unbelievable. And we're talking about in the last, what period of time has that change been made?
That was just in the last couple years here. And some of that was actually in the last, about 2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And some of that, I can't take total credit for that. Obviously, our market here in Arizona spiked up dramatically.
Understood.
And now it's kind of in a free fall right now. But
right.
So some of that is because the average sale price, in the area went up. Some of it was because we went, and our average sale price moved up because of our marketing and things that we chose to target.
Good.
But a lot of it was, to me, the worst market we ever had was when it was blazing hot, because it's difficult for people to be able to transfer value to a client for them to be able to understand the value that you bring. Right now, this is where a lot of people are, they need to stay away from sharp objects and tall buildings. Right now, I love it. I think there's nothing that's ever been better than this. I tell the people I get a chance to work with every day how lucky we are to be in this market, because this puts a emphasis on the value that you bring.
It's a really good point. I'm thinking about just like in healthcare, for example, if you suddenly have a diagnosis, right, where you've got a problem, and maybe a life-threatening problem, any doctor is not the answer. You want the best doctor. You want the doctor with the track record. You want the doctor who specializes in your issue. And what I'm hearing you say is, in a good market, everybody kind of looks the same. It's like, yeah, whatever, great. Let's go throw a sign up and hold an open house and let's sell this sucker.
Sure.
But man, when it's challenging, somebody with a track record, and I got to tell you, somebody with your attitude, Curtis. I remember interviewing a guy in Michigan last year, Tom Rumble. I don't know if you remember this, but very down market, right? They've got layoffs. I mean, GM and Delco, it's rough. And he said, part of my job, a big part of my job, is to be the one person that people talk to that say, wow, he's optimistic. He can help me. And I hear that in you.
Oh, right. Yeah, right now, I was doing some numbers last night and pulled up everything that's on the multiple listing service, and there's about 68,732 homes and lots that were on the market. And last month, about 5,200 sold. So you've obviously got a glut of homes on the market. And,
right.
And just during our peak, just to give you an idea, usually we've got about 30,000 homes on the market here.
Wow.
And at the peak, we got down to about 5,000 or 6,000 homes on the market.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got 10 to 12 times as many homes on the market. And when people call in off our advertising and they've talked to different agents and stuff, and they're like, well, stuff isn't selling. So, you know what? We've never been selling our stuff better. We've never had more contracts, more buyers looking for what we've got. So the buyers are out there. You just have to be able to have incredible marketing to be able to draw them in.
Absolutely.
And it's just an amazing opportunity for people that want to gain market share.
Yes. Yeah, good for you. I mean, the bottom line is people are in pain. There's the one thing about real estate we know, and I just remember somebody laying this out for me years ago. They said, good market, bad market, whatever. Here's what we know. There's deaths, births, divorces, marriages, move up, move down, transfers in, transfers out. There's reasons for people to buy and sell property, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a choice. I mean, you can either, be I like to say you can either be an order taker, you can sit at the, no offense to McDonald's, you can sit at the counter and press a button in the French fries and wait for people to come in, or you can go out and get it.
Absolutely.
Go out and get it.
Yeah, hunters and trappers, that's always the way I've looked at it.
Yep.
So with that in mind now, I want to make sure that we get it, because we went from 4,900 to 11,000. You said part of that, obviously, was the appreciation of the market, but the other part is, you said you have raised your average fees from 2.508% in 2004 to now 3.45% on each transaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, that's significant.
Our clients need us more now than ever.
Yeah.
They need to have their home exposed to more people.
Right.
And we're essentially what Dan Kennedy likes to call, you're in the toll position. You're in the position that people need you more than you need them.
I love that.
So in that case, you're able to dictate the value that you see fit.
Absolutely. The toll position. I love that. Right on. Okay, so good. So let's move on down this path now and help people to sort of understand, where you're coming from. And I guess maybe one of the best places to begin is where your lead's coming from. I mean, as a coach, it always comes down to, you can have the greatest infrastructure, capacity, attitude. Man, you can have all that stuff nailed, but if you don't have leads coming in, the front doors of your business are closed. So where are your leads coming from?
Sure. Well, the majority of our leads right now are coming from our TV spots, our radio, and we also advertise. We've got premium position in about 5 to 6 homes, magazines, and newspapers. We've got, like I said, we believe in putting premium position so we can be the first thing people see as they're kind of considering it, so we can get them early in on the process with that. And obviously the Internet's a huge part of our business as well, and our extensive advertising there. But I believe in massive marketing to have a flood of people, because if you've got more people to choose from, you don't have to worry about if someone's trying to play hardball with the commission or what have you, because you've got more people right behind them.
Boy, I got to tell you, there's a little more magic. This is one of those interviews I predict, Curtis, that people are going to listen to several times. Because there's so many good ahas you've got in there.
Well, I've always loved your interviews, and I go back and I'm a student. I think that there's a lot of people that know so much more than I do, and it's my job to find out what they are. So I listen to all of your interviews several times, and that's not a paid promotion. I just think your stuff's great.
I appreciate it, man. But I think there's wisdom in that, in any whatever it is. If it's a book, if it's an interview, whatever you can do to, our mind drifts off, right? It can multitask like nothing we've ever seen. And if you miss one little nugget like what you just said, which is, in my words, what I just heard you say is, I have more at-bats. I don't have to worry about the one that didn't work out, or the one that's a problem, or the one that's not a fit in sort of my business mode, because I have so many more options going out there. And in a world that right now is pulling back in real estate
Right.
for marketing and advertising, I hear you saying you're doing more of it.
No, absolutely, and I understand the mentality of, actually some people that I really, really respect, claim the best thing to do right now is to kind of hunker down and wait it out. My belief is it's not just going to be a thing that's going to be done in a couple seasons or even a year or two. I think that there's going to be some long-term ramifications for this, and I think if you do that, you better have a big stockpile of money to be able to wait it out. I believe in taking market share and actually making money and growing during this period of time, and then when the market changes, you'll have immense market share. I just think that's absolutely the thing to do. One of the biggest things we've got right now, because of we market so much, and a lot of people are pulling back, we actually stand out even more. So
Yeah.
actually getting more bang for a buck for what we're advertising right now, getting a better return on it. One of the problems we're facing is because of the amount of leads that we're bringing in, most of our agents are like, hey, you know what, we're overloaded. We've got too many people. We can't follow up on these things properly. So we're having to come up with better systems to be able to handle the amount of leads and be able to do a better job, working those
Right.
in a systematic way.
Sure.
Yesterday we had all of our conference rooms full with clients coming in. We actually had so many. We were out of conference rooms, just trying to deal with them, and we actually ran out of agents. We had more appointments than we had agents, so we had to try and cut some of those appointments short to be able to handle them all.
It's a beautiful thing, man. All right, so one thing at a time. I want to drill down deep on a few of these advertising and marketing efforts. So TV and radio. Let's start with TV, and I want to just give listeners a way to be able to view it. If they go to your website, that would be the easiest way for them to see it, right?
I've got it up on my website right now.
And is that CurtisJohnson.com or the CurtisJohnsonTeam.com?
Either way, those go to the same place right now.
Okay, so probably the easiest is CurtisJohnson.com. Scroll
Correct.
down, and they can see your TV spot. And by the way, I love that little corner of the page that sort of drips down and bounces there. It's like, oh man, I can't ignore that. Yeah, it's a well done.
We've got our TV spot, and we've also hired Sean Hannity from Fox TV to be able to do a radio spot for us as
Love
well.
it.
So we have our radio spot on there right now as well.
So let's talk about those two. The TV spot. I mean, you are clearly now a local celebrity. How long have those TV ads been running?
We've been running it since the beginning of the year, so about 6 months or so.
And if you were to try and quantify that, is there any way that you can measure the cost and your ROI?
Right now, it's about a break even. We're actually starting to get to the profit point of that, but it takes it takes a good 6 months or
Sure.
so. Not before we get results, because we get results the very first day we run it. But for those things to be able to go through the process and start getting a return on it. But what it does is it actually makes all of our other marketing that much stronger.
Absolutely.
So it gives us a lot more credibility. People are more pre-sold to do business with us.
Yeah.
It just helps out in so many other ways.
Absolutely. So, assuming a listener has not yet seen the spot, if you were to describe the message, what are you saying? What's the message that's being conveyed in that television commercial?
Well, I essentially guaranteed to sell their home, sell our client's home in 27 days, or they pay 0% commission, or I'll step in and buy it myself for cash.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now this is an idea that I probably first heard, 15 years ago from Hobbs Herder Advertising,
Right.
And as you told me in the pre-interview, one of the things that you're good at is obviously looking for what's working in other parts of the country and implementing it into your business there. So good for you. I mean, it doesn't have to be a brand new original concept to be a killer application. So let's talk about that a little bit. When people first hear that, they think, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean if it doesn't sell in 27 days, then either I'll buy it or you owe me no commission? Talk to me a little bit for listeners unfamiliar with the program. Help them understand how this works.
Sure. I mean, it's not as much as I'd love to take credit for it. It's not a unique thing just to me. A lot of top agents throughout the country have guarantee sale programs. I don't know of anybody that's as aggressive as we are in going about that. But it's just a guarantee, a performance guarantee, saying that if we can't do it in this amount of time, that either you don't pay us, or if you want, I'll buy your home. So most people have guarantees where they've got to buy one of their listings or move up with them. And actually, I've stripped all the restrictions off it. It's pretty cut and dry. It's just what it is. I look at it, the best way I've been able to explain it is, if you want to bring your trade a car in. I've talked to some people that had car dealerships. And I said, what would happen if you didn't let people trade in their cars? And they said, well, we wouldn't be able to get about 80% of our business. And I said, well, I want to open myself up to that.
Right.
So we give people the option, if you want to trade up to one of our houses, we can give you a great price on your house. If you're just going to drive into the lot and drop your car off and move out of state and not do anything with it, you're obviously not going to get the same price as if you were going to move up into one of my listings, or if I was going to help you go out and buy another house. So it really just depends on the situation. But most of the time we offer between 95 and 100% of value. It's just a very, very strong guarantee. We stand behind it.
Oh, that's powerful, man. And so what percentage of the time do they take you up, or you are unsuccessful in getting the property sold in 27 days?
Very rarely.
I'll bet.
Very rarely. I do buy houses. It's part of the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
But I'm an investor as well.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I love being an investor, and I love being able to protect our clients, because right now there's so many of our clients that are they're unable to move because they want to move into another house. They're afraid of getting stuck with two homes or missing out on their dream home altogether. So we pretty much step in and see a need and we solve it.
Absolutely. Good for you, man. Love the approach. So radio, the Sean Hannity spot is great. Now, how does that work? Is that available through any talk radio station, as far as you know, that carries Sean? Was that a special thing you put together?
It's a special thing through a marketing person that I work with, Matt Wagner, that's fantastic in advertising. And it's a special thing that he's been able to set up for a couple of his advertising clients. I'm not sure how available it is in a lot of places.
Understood.
But I know it's an exclusive.
Well, it's very powerful. I mean, the beauty of it is when people go to your website, if they're not looking at it right now, is, you've got some great graphics there of Sean Hannity in front of the mic and the logo. And, it absolutely appears to be an endorsement from one of the most popular talk show hosts in the country. So
sure.
Nice job.
The biggest thing with that is we're able to, slice and dice our market to be able to better match our message with the market. Most people just have one certain thing. Hey, work with me. I've got great service or whatever, and don't have the ability to be able to target what people are really looking for. So obviously, I know it's a polarizing thing. I know a lot of people. Obviously, he's a very conservative talk show host, and it's a different demographics and group. But by doing that, we know that the majority of the people that are going to be calling in on that have a certain attributes, and we can target them with certain things, and actually certain homes we can target directly to those people.
Sure.
If you were going to advertise on a different radio show, Air America or something like that, you'd have a different group of information coming in, and you could market to those people differently.
Well, yeah, you'd have about 500 listeners in the country. But anyway, moving on. So the print now, print is going through such an interesting evolution, and I just find it fascinating to watch what's happening there. For many years, 20 years ago, the marketing war in real estate was in the major newspapers in every market.
Right.
And big money, enormous money was spent in the newspaper. And now it's changing. It's evolving, because I look at my kids, anywhere from their 20s to 30s, and they get their news online. So they're not looking at newspapers, right? They're not touching physical bits of information. And yet, you're telling me that you're doing a great job with premium positioning, and I want you to define that with Selected Homes type magazines and newspaper. What have you determined is working for you?
Sure. Well, I'd say majority of the magazines we've got the back cover or right towards the front on the right-hand read of it.
Yeah.
Another one, we've got a 4-page spread on like pages 3, 4, 5, and 6 right as they open it.
Right.
But I believe that there's something that people really enjoy about having something in their hands.
Yes.
Granted, over the last 8 years, the numbers have been going down as far as our call volume off of those, but there's still a segment of the market that still goes to that. And one of the things also is just like, the numbers off of newspapers are, off the charts horrible as far as call returns and
Right.
things like that.
Right.
But the thing is most sellers don't understand that. Most sellers
Absolutely.
still want you to be there, even though it's not effective. And because sellers actually kind of learn these things a little bit later than everybody else, and most agents have kind of gone away from the newspaper,
Yeah.
or they're really trying to shift all of their money into the internet, which is, there's some value in that. But you've got to realize that part of our job as well is pacifying our sellers, trying to give them what they want.
I totally agree. Yeah.
In a lot of cases, we'll go through a house and we'll figure out the best qualities of the home, and we'll actually ask the sellers, tell me what you think are the main selling features.
Right.
And when we started doing that, we started getting a whole lot less complaints when we would, make sure we put those things in the flyers,
Right.
even if they weren't maybe the best features.
Yeah.
But clients absolutely loved the fact that their input was included there.
Yeah.
They love to be included.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of times people don't understand is that this is a business, and I want the buyers, I want sellers actually looking for buyers for those homes. But sellers absolutely love it. It makes them thrilled to see their home in print. And if you do it right, it still works very, very well.
Yeah. Understood. I think you laid that out really well. I see the exact same thing that you do, and I always call it seller placation. But it's a listing tool. At the end of the day, it's a listing tool. And like people who use IVR, I know you use interactive voice response. One of the greatest tools I've ever heard of as a listing tool is to lay that out for a seller and
Sure.
show them how that works. Here's an ad in Homes Magazine. Here's an ad in the newspaper. Somebody calls in here. Why don't we do it right now? Boom, boom, boom. And then your phone rings, right?
Right.
And it's like, wow, it dazzles them because they've never seen that kind of thing before. So much of this is just a very powerful listing tool. But by the same token, obviously you're a guy that measures results, and you're obviously not just going to throw money after something that isn't generating any results.
There's very few things I do that just, like as you said, just kind of placate sellers. Very few things. And actually, this isn't one of them. We still get a very good return off our magazines. I know a lot of people are pulling out. Actually, one of the magazines, I've got the back cover on it, was shrinking. We just found out they're actually going to shut it down.
Really?
Because most of the advertisers, none of the agents had any more money to advertise in it.
Yeah.
And so they're having to shut down that magazine. So we'll be dropping one magazine.
Right.
But that's just the way it goes.
That's the evolution.
And as bad as it is, I look at it as just a better opportunity for the people that are serious about this business, and a great opportunity.
Totally. So let's talk about the internet, because that's the third venue that you mentioned in terms of advertising and marketing. What you're a young guy. You've grown up with the internet, obviously, and computers. Tell me a little bit about your read on the internet, because there's a very wasteful way to approach this in real estate, and then there's some very efficient ways to approach it. What have you learned? What's working for you?
Well, I think it's all it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's some really good things to it, and depending on your ability to be able to build websites and things like that, it can be a huge rat hole. You can spend a lot of time there with no return on it.
Absolutely.
So you really have to make a decision. Either it's something you're going to handle or you're going to outsource. And
Yeah.
I've really done a little bit of both. I'm a little bit more hands-on. I want to learn something first before I delegate it so that I can understand and track it better.
Right.
At first, I did a little bit and I outsourced it to some people. I wasn't getting the type of results I wanted. So I knew it was something I needed to learn to be able to understand if they were doing a good job or not. So
Yeah.
it's something I've gone through and spent a lot of time trying to learn and be able to understand how does it work. And to me, not to be rude, most of the real estate agents, are so far behind the times. There's some fantastic, real estate marketers on the internet, but for the most part, most of them are pretty poor. So you really need to kind of look outside your industry and say, who do you want to be like? Do you want to be like Nordstrom's? Do you want to be like any other company? And then start modeling your business, maybe even your internet presence after somebody else outside your industry. But you can't get so caught up in only looking at, hey, what's the person in the office down the corner doing, and duplicate them, because chances are they're not making it. They're
Absolutely.
not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a great point there, and I should point out to people that you've already told me that a quarter of your business, 25% of your business, is coming from the internet, right?
Yeah, I mean, it probably is a little bit higher than that, but since we, all of our, advertisements, our radio, TV, and different things, we push through different funnels. I'm still trying to do a little bit better job of outsourcing those people to different sites so we could do a better job of tracking exactly where all the traffic's coming from.
So, I don't want to belabor this, but I want to make sure people understood what you just said, and that is that if I'm using traditional marketing method to drive them, traditionally we would drive them to the phone, right? They call us.
Correct.
But if you can drive them to a website where you in the internet world they call that a sticky website, right? Where I'm gonna capture information when I get there. I mean, can you talk to me just a little bit about that? Because I think one of the things you touched on is something that I want to make sure listeners hear. And that is, it's easy to get into sort of the Me Too game on the internet with a pretty website, and it's got about me and my listings and all the listings. And yeah, okay, great. You've got an IDX connection. That's all good. But what you maybe really don't have is what the prospective seller or buyer is really looking for. And that is, more often than not, information. And by giving them information and providing a way to capture their data so that you can follow up, I mean, to me, that's closing the loop, right? That's where I've generated the lead, I put them into my system, and now they sort of start working through my machinery. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you approach that?
Sure. I think you hit on a pretty key point there, and you're assuming that people are working it once they get it, and that they've got a back-end structure to be able to do that, which,
right.
I would question it in most cases, but you're absolutely right. That's the ideal thing. You need to figure out what your business processes are first to be able to decide, okay, I am going to work this way. I want it hands-off. I want them to only be able to go to this website and be able to contact me through here. Here's the information I want to be able to give them, and I want it to follow this structure. Most people just kind of slap something up there. They get a email from, hey, this company will give you a website, and you just throw it up there, and you go, wow, look, hey, cool, I've got this thing out in cyberspace that no one's really ever going to come to. You really need to plan out and say, okay, this is what I want it to do. This is the end result, kind of like what you talked about. Is I want to not just have people be able to go look at some website, but what is the end result I want? Because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to do my website this way because less people will click on it. It's like, well, okay, do you want people to click on it and be able to, would you have a smaller number of people to give you their information, or would you like a lot of people to just ignore you?
Right.
So you've really got to be able to make a choice, and then how you're going to actually work that all the way through. One of the things I did that was pretty eye-opening to me was a while back. I probably learned more in a 3 or 4 day period than I had in 3 or 4 years previous to that, and I'd spent a lot of time searching the internet and studying that, but I actually got a program that tracked what exactly people clicked on, where they were at, what parts of the site they went to, more than just your basic, this is how many clicks and things like that, but very, very detailed.
Right.
And I was absolutely blown away, and I had studied and asked people, hey, where would you go on this page? What would you do? And people, they might tell you one thing, but when you actually watch what people do when you're not with them, it's very eye-opening. So I would, give it to some of your friends, have them test and see where they went to. If you don't want to buy a high-end program or what, but you can, just by watching the way people actually do it as opposed to what they tell you they'll do, it's just really eye-opening.
Do you, for listeners that may want to go that route, and I realize that it's a big commitment, but do you recall the name of that program or service?
I really don't.
That's okay. Hold on to it.
I wish I did, but
it's okay.
It was a fantastic program, and it really helped in trying to set up some different things.
I don't recall. I remember one about 5 years ago that was very popular, and there was an agent in Florida that told me the same thing. But I think that there's real value to that, to find out, what is really happening. Where will people really click? How much time do they spend on this page?
Exactly.
On average, and it really helps you to then redesign your website appropriately. So.
Yeah, but it's definitely an ego deflator though when you see somebody, how many people click on for a couple seconds and they're gone, and you're like, wow, really, I bored them that bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And but you can really you can have your ego or you can have some cash in your pocket. You got to make a choice which one you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, I keep saying I want to write a book called "It Is What It Is" because so often we just start nodding our heads when we hear that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit here. Now, one of the things that you touched on before the interview is that you've engaged the services of a former E-Myth trainer made famous by Michael Gerber,
right?
Who really just approaches everything through a systems filter, meaning, if you run into one scenario more than once, you should begin thinking about how to systematize it. And I always use as an example, because I used to fly a lot, on the airlines, you used to, and many airlines still do it, like Southwest obviously has live flight attendants who do the pre-flight briefings. And, Southwest has a culture where they want to have fun with it. And,
right.
It's kind of entertaining. But many of the big major airlines have gone to a different system where they've said, okay, the pre-flight briefing is only as good as the flight attendant who's giving it. So what we're instead going to do is write the perfect pre-flight briefing. We're going to videotape it in a studio, and we're going to put it on the monitors so that when people sit down, they just have to look at the monitors. And now we know they're going to get the best briefing every time, without question. I'm sure the attorneys had a lot to do with that, to make sure that it's the best, it's the best delivery every time. So I hear you sort of approaching your business in a similar fashion, where it's, okay, this situation has happened more than once. Let's look at building a system around it. So I guess where I'm heading with you now is
absolutely
sort of that systems dialogue. Talk to me a little bit about where did maybe that light switch get turned on for you, Curtis? Was there a moment where you were just running fast and furious and you said, man, I need to figure out a better way to run this? Or where did it hit you?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. As I've grown my team and done things, I start, realizing, hey, you know what, I keep doing the same thing over and over. I keep training this person on the same thing over and over. Or with the client, I keep doing these certain things, and I'm a pretty high D personality. I don't want to spend that much time doing something if I can automate it in some way.
Right.
And then it's just the whole battle of how much time do you want to spend automating it and things like that. But I was definitely influenced heavily by Michael Gerber, the E-Myth series. I've read all of his books. I've spent 4 days in just a small, maybe 10 of us spent like 4 days with him going through his dreaming room process and mapping out exactly what you want to do with your life and your business, and how you want to incorporate systems into that and how to be able to do that. I wish I could tell you, our whole organization is completely, hands off and it's just running like a well-oiled machine, and that would kind of be a big fib. We're moving in that direction.
Sure.
I think it's something that is extremely, extremely important. I think everybody has to look at, even if you don't want to grow your company, even if you're fine with whatever size it is, if you're just a one-person organization or, even 50, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You've really got to decide, okay, if I were going to franchise this, if somebody else had to do this, what would they do?
Yes.
And how can I get this as close to a franchise system, even if you don't want to franchise it? How close can I get this so that somebody else can do it? And I look at it as not just from a selfish standpoint, what's going to save me the most time, but what's going to be the end result for your client? What is going to give them the best result, the best experience, so they're going to want to come back time and time again, refer friends, family, everybody else, and also for the people that you work with, what's going to be the best experience for your coworkers?
Yes. I love what you're laying out, and I want to help listeners sort of jump into the pool a bit with you there. And while they may not be, quite prepared to commit at the level that you have, they can start. And they could start, and I'm going to ask you, because you're big time into Gerber. Obviously, we've got the E-Myth, and then the more recent book was the E-Myth Revisited. For realtors that you talk to, is there a particular book that you would recommend for them?
I would start with the E-Myth.
Yeah.
You've got the E-Myth, E-Myth Revisited, E-Myth Mastery. You've got all of them. PowerPoint. I think there's 7 or 8 of them right now, and he's just about to come out with another one. The reality is, you read the first one, and it's hopefully a light bulb will pop on.
Yeah, good.
But you really have to be able to decide. Either you're a business owner, and one of the best things is everybody can relate to a lot of things he talks about. The grappling back and forth between the technician, the entrepreneur, these different people, and the manager, kind of all, everybody's kind of got their piece in it, and you're going to go back and forth between all of these. It's really important to be able to understand those, and that you're not alone, that everybody's gone through these things. People that have grown their business, they've had the same feelings, the same thoughts. You're no offense, you're not any different than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Everybody goes through it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess that's the point. And the good news is in these interviews, and you know this because you've received them over the years, the vast majority of people that are listening to these are already doing a fair amount of volume, or the loan originator who has made the commitment to get them to them probably wouldn't be bringing them to you unless you just happen to be a nice person. So
one of the best things about it is they self-select themselves, right? The people that
they do
that don't want to grow aren't going to listen to
Absolutely.
them. And the loan officers that don't take their business serious or don't want the systems, they wouldn't be giving these out.
Exactly.
They wouldn't be able to get that for their clients.
Yeah. So, you're probably not in this little dialogue that we're having right now if you're not already hitting your head against this or maybe have started to solve the problem. But yeah, I've got to say that, if you're hitting that ceiling, and I don't know, I think for most agents, it's probably that, 3, 4, 5 transactions a month, every single month, all by yourself. That's probably the level I find for most agents where it's like, okay, I'm reinventing the wheel every single month,
Right.
And if you want to get past that and get out of that technician stage, that's a great read. And two of my favorite books actually are The E-Myth and David Allen's book, Getting Things Done.
Absolutely fantastic book.
The whole concept there of, because he asks 2 questions, right, that he wants you to look at, and that is, what's the desired outcome and what's the next action?
Right.
What's the desired outcome? What's the next action? And it's just a great methodology for thinking. So 2 great books I would certainly recommend. Let's move into the team, because there's only, even with your systems, right, there's only so much you can do. You can open up a McDonald's franchise, but you still need somebody to pull the fries out when the buzzer goes off. So let's talk a little bit about where you are and maybe what you've learned in hiring. I mean, one of the things I want to make sure we mention, longtime listeners are familiar, of course, with DISC, D-I-S-C, the behavioral assessment. You mentioned that you're a high D, which would be sort of the dominant, the let's get things done. You've got a fuse that's lit in your head in terms of urgency. It's kind of the Donald Trump, Donald Rumsfeld, Hillary Clinton, let's go make some things happen right now kind of mentality. But I would recommend to listeners that if you've not done this, do that first. Get your DISC, because it's sort of your behavioral owner's manual,
Absolutely.
And then start looking at, okay, where are these key people going to be in my team that I'm building, and what kind of styles do I need? With that said, now, forgive my little preamble, but tell us a little bit about where you are with your team and maybe what you've learned in the process.
What I learned was that I had some major deficiencies, just like what you talked about, that, I'm maybe pretty strong in some areas, but I was pretty weak in a lot of others, and either something was going to have to give. Either my clients were going to get a worse experience, or I was going to have to surround myself with world-class people that could fill in these gaps and actually make, do things so much better than I could.
Right.
And it was pretty early on that I started realizing that, hey, maybe in these other areas, I'm not real thrilled with what some of the results are by some of the people I'd hired or whatever. But then I started realizing that as I train people and I put them in the right, as in Good to Great, where they talk about the right seats on the bus, and we find people that, have they're excited about certain aspects of it.
Yes.
They do a fantastic job, and they do so much better than what I could ever do.
Right.
And what that equates out to is a lot better experience for our clients.
Yes.
And that's really what it comes down to, because if you're only looking out for what you're going to end up with, you're going to be in this business a pretty short period of time like everybody else.
Absolutely.
But if you're always looking at how does this affect the client, is this a good experience or a bad experience for them, that's really what it ultimately comes down to for me, is trying to always create that wow experience for our clients. So they're just thrilled, and you're always going to, even if you don't want to, you're going to pull away from things that you're not good at.
Sure.
And, there might be some paperwork things that I'm not really good at, and I might say, okay, I really know I need to do this, but in the back of my mind, I'm trying to come up with excuses why I need to do this other thing first, and it will never happen.
Sure.
So you absolutely need to surround yourself with, world-class people that fill in the other gaps in the DISC wheel.
Yes. Good for you. So now you've got 3 staff, right?
Yeah.
And that's two listing and closing coordinators, and then your wife is doing the accounting and the books.
Right. Yeah, so I would say almost like 4 staff, because I've also got a general manager that carries out the plan that we're running here.
Okay, good. And that's over both offices?
Yes.
Okay, good. And so how many agents? You mentioned agents plural, so help me understand that a bit.
Right now I've got about 5 agents that have been with me for several years, that have kind of seasoned agents, and I think right now I've got about maybe 8 or so newer ones that have started in the various stages of training and kind of grasping and getting better and better at some things, and world-class people that have come on, and it's still not enough. We've just got way too many leads and way too many opportunities for people, so we'll be growing again.
Yeah, I'm laughing here in the background because I love what I'm hearing, that in a contracting market, you're growing.
Yeah.
So with that said now, for people who are maybe where you were possibly a few years ago, where, you are clearly selling Curtis Johnson, you are the brand. At some point you had to deal with the idea that, okay, so if I'm selling Curtis Johnson, I'm selling myself, and, Bob Smith shows up at the homeowners, correction, they're coming to your office.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, they're coming to your office. How do you deal with the expectation? I guess let me just cut to the chase. They're assuming they're going to meet with you. How do you deal with that disconnect?
Well, I think it's a mental hurdle I had to get through pretty early on, and most of it was just like I said, ego deflator. That ultimately, as much as I'd love to think how great I am, people really don't care who they meet with. They want the result, right? Buyers want a fantastic home at a great price. They want a great experience.
Yeah.
And sellers want their home sold fast for the least amount of for the shortest amount of time with the least amount of inconvenience. That's what they want. They really don't care if they've met me or not.
Sure.
Now, if I have met them, that's a different story. A lot of times people don't want to feel shuffled off.
Right, exactly.
The reality is, just like if I needed major brain surgery and I was looking to go into a hospital, I look at it like this. I'd want the best brain surgeon where I'm essentially the chief of staff of the hospital, making sure everything's performing well, making sure everything's happening and overseeing the whole transaction, the marketing, making sure the hospital's run right.
Right.
But you don't want the chief of staff doing, the surgery. You want the best technician.
Absolutely.
And we've got different people that are amazing at their craft, do a fantastic job with it, and do a much better job than I could ever do.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you, man. Well put. Well put. Okay, so database. One of the things that just as to me, it's almost criminal in real estate as an industry how poorly we've managed a database.
Yes.
And Top Producer clearly is the category killer in that space. There's Online Agent, there's certainly Act, there's a lot of different directions that people can go. But I would appreciate hearing, after 8 years in the business, doing the kind of volume that you're doing, how many people do you currently have in your database?
Right now, I actually just went through and it's actually a source of frustration for me. I actually just cleaned out a bunch because I'd been using Top Producer actually since I started, right at the very beginning. Actually before I'd ever sold a home, I got Top Producer before it was online, and made that investment because I knew that if I brought in a lead, what good was it if I couldn't track it?
Absolutely.
So that was an investment I made early on,
yeah.
and I've used Top Producer ever since then.
Good.
I'm actually in the process of transitioning out into another product that I think will actually help me with the type of volume that we're doing right now and being able to move that forward.
And what is that?
It's a product called Infusion.
Right.
It's actually, we're just making the investment into that, and I think it's going to just be a major increase in our business. But right now, we've got somewhere between about 8 and 10,000 people in our database that we're working with and contacting.
And ultimately, I hear your frustration as you're sort of dealing with it right now. But ultimately, where do you see it? I mean, if a year from now you could paint the picture for me of how you see your database sort of being tiered, segmented, managed, what do you see with the database down the road?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think it'll be closer to about 30 or 40,000 people.
Wow.
Which I know might, some people are probably chuckling or whatever, saying, "Oh, that's not going to happen," but it absolutely will.
Yeah.
And we just need to be able to have the infrastructure to be able to handle that. And one of the problems that we were facing, I love Top Producer. I think it's a good program for what it did.
Sure.
But it was also too easy for things to get lost. I know they did some security things where make it so people couldn't delete things, but it's still too easy for things to not be followed up on and to be lost. And we've just lost too much money doing that.
Yeah.
So we're having to, I need to take responsibility as the chief of staff. I dropped the ball in a lot of cases, and I need to do a better job of making sure that we're maximizing every lead that comes in, and that's my commitment to do.
Good for you. Well, we're fascinatingly running out of time here. Of course, to me the best interviews obviously fly by. The ones that are a bit more challenging, it's like, okay, we must be in our third hour by now. So this one flew by, and it's a real compliment to you. I really appreciate you making the time to share today. But as you know, one of the last questions I always ask is, why do you choose the industry relationships that you do? What's important to you specifically, since obviously these are distributed by loan originators? I'm always curious, in that relationship in particular, what are you looking for? What's most important to you?
Sure. Well, one of the big things I've got in my mission statement that I live by is I think it's not just about selling houses. It's not just even about the relationship with the individual client.
Yeah.
But I think that if you make a choice to be in the loan origination business or even the real estate business, that you have to first make a choice that you're going to elevate the overall level of professionalism in that industry. That it's not just about what you do, but you need to be able to raise it. You need to set a better example for those people around you as new people come in, so they can go, oh, well, this is how it's done.
Right.
This is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So for me, the biggest thing is professionalism and somebody keeping their word when it's given.
Yes.
From a loan officer's perspective, or I look at I'm a nitpicky over the little details. If someone says they're going to call me at 11 o'clock, at 11:01, I'm frustrated that you're late.
Right.
If someone says, okay, I'm going to send that over and I'll be there by 5,
Yep.
at 5:10, I'm thinking that they've got a character issue because they're not following it.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that stuff can't come up. It just means that that's just one thing. A red flag pops up in my
Right.
up in my head. So the biggest thing is if someone says it's going to be there by 5, have it there at 3:30.
Yeah.
And follow up to let me know they got done. And you can earn a ton of business by just under promising and over delivering.
Absolutely.
And just wowing somebody. So that's really just a huge thing for me. I'm not big into I think not big into rate shopping. I'm not big into beating up lenders and stuff like that. But I am big into integrity and someone keeping their word. And that if there's something that's we always have things that blow up in contracts or whatever. Is don't hide about it.
Right.
Step up and take responsibility for it.
Absolutely. Man, that's well put. I think those are wonderful standards for anyone, but sadly, of course, in every industry, we see it far too seldom. So, where's this thing taking you? How old are you now, Curtis?
I just barely turned 35.
35.
So I'm pretty much on the downward slope of the mountain.
Yeah, it's pretty much all over for you now.
Yeah, I'm trying to hurry up and build a legacy because I could go at any time.
Yeah, good choice, man. Well, standing on the precipice of disaster in the end of your life as you are, tell me a little bit about your goals. Where's this thing taking you? You've opened a second office. You're building, remarkable systems. Where are you going to be a year, 3 years, 5 years down the road?
Well, I've got huge aspirations, and if anybody wants a good laugh, right? I mean, they talk about if you ever want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans about what you're doing. So I've got huge aspirations, but I know that if you don't plan for it and if you don't go after it, you'll never reach it. But I want to sell $1 billion worth of residential real estate. I think that someone's got to be the top, someone's got to be the biggest and the best, and I think by the type of people I've got surrounding me and the leadership we're creating around here, I think, hey, you know what? Someone's got to be the highest producing real estate company in the world, and that might as well be us.
I love
so by
that.
creating those systems, whatever you want to take out of it, by creating the world-class systems, that's at least going to give us a fighting chance, and I'm going to do everything I can to get us there.
Right on. Love it. Curtis, you're a busy man, and so I'm going to encourage listeners who do have a question for you, or hopefully even better, a referral, to be cautious, obviously, about approaching you, but they very well may need to reach you. What would be the best way for people to do that?
I'm definitely big into email because that way I can block that time out and get to that.
Sure.
In those different segments of my day. Best way is just to email me, curtis@curtisjohnson.com.
Okay.
Or if you need to reach my office here, you can call 1-888-CURTIS-JOHNSON.
Fantastic. Curtis, you are a force of nature, my friend, and it is a pleasure to have had the opportunity to spend this time with you. Thanks for sharing today.
It's been an honor to spend some time with you, Bill. Thank you.
Continued success, man. Well, what a great interview, right? Curtis is just such a great example of what's possible. There's so many great things that I could summarize here. I mean, being in the toll position, I just thought is a great way to frame the way that he differentiates, in a very crowded, complaining kind of market. The fact that he references having the right people on the bus, world-class people that are team members, just his entire contrarian approach, I just think was fabulous. And of course, at the end where he described who he was looking for in a mortgage lender relationship. So, that's the bridge for me to introduce you to the person that brought you this interview. If you're getting value from this, I'm going to ask you to pick up the phone or email the person that brought you this interview. They have extended now an olive branch. They've extended to you a gift, something that can make a difference, that can have an impact not only on your business but your life. And frankly, I think you owe it to them to spend a little bit of time with them to find out how they can help you to get this stuff implemented. So do me a favor, make that happen. I think that connection is just the right way to approach life and business. Until next month, this is Bill Hart for the Real Estate Performance System. Make it a great day.